Hey everybody, I'm Miles. I'm here with Jim Fallows, who you are incredible on the show tonight. You wrote this fascinating article for The Atlantic, and you had a really interesting discussion with Bill about it. I want to know what it's been like since you wrote the article. I know you mentioned that you've been getting a lot of feedback from members of the military and that community. What's that been like?
So I've worked for The Atlantic for a long time, 35 years, and this is by far the most response I've ever gotten to any article in that time.
Really?
And it's impressed me and surprised me in two ways. One is its volume. Thousands now of notes. They're very well composed, very thoughtful, very disturbing in some ways. That's one. Volume is one thing. The fact that it's mainly been from people in the military is the second. Probably 90% of people who are either active duty now or recent veterans. And the third has been how supportive they have been of the basic argument, which is there is something fundamentally wrong in the connection between the military and the civilian population these days.
Well, it's hard to read that article and not agree with what you're saying there, which is that it is a system that is very hard to criticize and appears to be in many ways broken or in need of fixing.
And I was afraid initially that many people who had any military connection would think, oh, this is criticizing us, we're going to have some tribal revulsion against this, but in fact, just the opposite. There's been part of my argument in this story is we need to have a more engaged discussion of what's good about the American military and what's weak and bad, and that's exactly the spirit in which many people in the military have responded. But just yesterday, I've done now like almost 20 of these rounds of response on the Atlantic site. Somebody said, why are you only hearing from people in the military? We were hoping that some people who are part of the general public would also say, we want to engage in these discussions. So my hope would be the next round of political campaigns or media attention will have some focus on this institution that takes trillions of our dollars per year and that takes people's lives and just has all of the impact it does around the world. So I feel some modest encouragement with this kind of response.
Well, that's excellent. I mean, it's not just an article that you have up there on the Atlantic. There's a whole discussion going on that you're moderating and curating up there, and it's really interesting. What are some examples of the feedback that you've got?
One that I put up just today, just before coming on the show, was from somebody who was a young Marine captain who'd been on a couple of tours in Afghanistan and Iraq. And he said he was going to explain why he was going to resign his commission and leave the Marine Corps. He said that when he was leading his soldiers in Kandahar in Afghanistan, he said there was no military reason for them to be there. It was simply for his Marine commander to show off what the Marines could do absent Army control. And actually, he was saying that about Helmand. And he said that all the focus should have been on Kandahar, and this was an example of something that should have been much more in the focus of public attention. Why was inter-service rivalry sort of wasting all this time, wasting lives, wasting money?
The Marines didn't want to be under the command of the Army, so
yes,
they wanted to go
have their own sort of Potemkin village showing what they could do, even though in the larger interest, it didn't make sense. And so he was saying the Marines he was commanding gave their lives for something that was just inter-service jealousy, inter-service rivalry. And he said this sickened him, and he was leaving the career he loved. I don't mean to single this guy out, even though I know his name, which I've concealed from the readers, but it's a sign of how seriously the 1% of America that's in uniform takes these life and death issues that need to be recognized by the rest of the public.
Well, thank you so much for highlighting these issues in such a really fascinating way. I would completely recommend going on the Atlantic and seeing this discussion that's taking place. Jim Fallows, really a pleasure to have you on the show tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.